Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call the December 9th, 2024 regular meeting of Council to order at 6 p.m. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Councillor Bowman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to declare an interest on November the 12th meeting, which I was not in attendance, as well as this meeting, December the 9th, 2024, on agenda item CP 2024-308, official plan amendment and zone change, Clarke Commercial Shopping Plaza. As a downtown property and business owner, any decision on this item could have an impact on the downtown core.
Further disclosures? I also have a disclosure of a similar nature, same report CP-2024-380, and for the same reasons, I'm a downtown property owner, and I declared the same at the previous meeting. Make sure the clerk has that. Any further disclosures? Seeing none, we will now move on to consent agenda adoption. Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Hellerue, that the items
No,
contained.
I'm sorry. I wanted to take out I wanted to make reference to something before we move that motion. I want us to take a look at the second, I'm just going to pull it up one moment. So for every motion in my report in the first agenda item last month, there is a pattern of in the minutes that the report was received and that the penalty was done and so on for the first and the third. The second, which I was not found to be
Sorry, Councillor Halleran,
has not been reported accurately. So I'd like a response to that in the minutes before we adopt it.
Okay, so that's response to the minutes. We're just doing the consent agenda at this point. So I don't believe that's in the consent agenda, but we will be doing the minutes right after that. So
okay,
if you want to hold that thought, we'll go right there for that. Okay.
All right, go ahead, Rick.
Okay, thank you. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Hellerue, that the items contained in the December 9th, 2024 consent agenda be adopted as presented.
Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Councillor Hallerue, you have the motion for the November 12th regular meeting minutes.
Yes.
So I don't know if that's what you were referring to, but we can
Yes, and I'm sorry for that. So in the, before we move this, in the delegations and presentations where Megan Cohen did a report for the Integrity Commissioner's report, we have documented for the record that moved the conduct to the code of conduct complaint against me was moved, and that council found so-and-so, and that the penalty of the contravention, for example, was so-and-so. And it happened again for the second complaint, but in this case, it doesn't have any information. So I would like it for the record to show that. The second code of conduct complaint against me was moved, and that council report that was, presented was not found in so-and-so manner as the third was also put forward. So I would like to hold that to the account.
Okay, I'm just going to let the clerk and the CAO confer.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry, I'll let the clerk.
Please go ahead.
Sorry, through the mayor to you, Councillor Hallerue. So the resolution that was adopted by council for the code of conduct complaint number 2, so 2024-02, was just to receive the report as information. That's what council resolved at the meeting. If council were to change that resolution, it would have to be a motion to reconsider. And then the third report was...
I remember her actually, so she did receive that, and she gave the reason why they did not find me liable for the complaint that was put forward. I just want it for the record because there's a public complaint against me for that number 2, And then I would like the results for that to show, because she did respond to that, and I would just like her words to be documented for the record. I'm not asking to change anything.
So maybe the clerk can give the a synopsis of what the minutes are required to show under the legislation?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So through the mayor to you, Councillor Halleroux, per the Municipal Act, the minutes are the official record, and so they have to be recorded without note or comment. So they are just to reflect the resolutions adopted by council. Unless there's a public meeting, and then we get into comments made by members of the public
I
and members
understand.
of council. So procedurally,
I
can't
understand,
add
but there was
anything
a complaint, and there was a response to that complaint. I just want that document, and I'm not asking for anything added. If we look at the video, there's a response, there's a complaint, and there's a response. And for each, it just doesn't have any content in that. And that's where I just wanted for the record that there was actually a report, and there was no, I just need us to be accurate in reporting the minutes, even though there was nothing added. But we cannot just put a line that it was, I really don't think that is acceptable to move it as for the record, because for the record, there was a public press release about a complaint against me, and the result of that was by the Integrity Commissioner deemed to not be in her either jurisdiction or whatever. I just need that put in there for the record.
Mr. Graves?
Yeah, I think I understand Councillor Hallerou's request, and
Thank you.
There's nothing wrong with having a motion that would have said that, but unfortunately, the motion that got passed didn't say that at this time. The report would be referenced, and the report still is on the agenda, and its findings would be available to the public in all ways. Unfortunately, since that resolution got passed the way it did, the only way to change that resolution now is for a motion to reconsider. So that's certainly something council can entertain under the motion to reconsider options, to put in a clause to give a finding of what that, acknowledge what Megan's report said, but that's the only tool at this point to change that motion.
So when the deputy mayor says, since there is no penalty for this motion, we will pass it as it was, that is not to be documented?
It did not form part of the motion, so that's not what gets documented in the minutes. It's just the motions without comment, as the clerk says in the Municipal Act.
Yeah, this is very consistent with what all our minutes are. There's no variation whatsoever.
I understand. I'm
But
just
I can
making
understand
sure.
if you're not comfortable moving the minutes as they are, I can ask for another mover.
Yeah, another mover, go ahead.
Okay. Is there a mover to receive the November 12th regular meeting minutes? Moved by Councillor Bowman. Thank you. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And now we'll move on to the special meeting of special meeting of council 2025, 25th of November 2024 minutes, and Councillor Van Kooten-Bossens, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson, that the minutes of the November 25th, 2024 special meeting of council be adopted as presented.
Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we will now go to delegations and presentations, and I will turn that over to Mr. Grace, please.
Thank you. Our first delegation is from our project manager for a new MURC, and so this is going to be a very exciting presentation. I wanted to say that this project is a very delicate balancing act. Council has set the goal of the new MURC and their strategic plan, but let's be honest, it's quite expensive. Staff have worked very closely with our project manager, Colliers, to develop a proposal that's viable and that we can actually fund. In actual fact, this project wasn't possible until we acquired the lands that we acquired through the generous donation of Growbrook Farms. Along with the economies of scale due to the collaboration with our partners, such as County of Oxford, Thames Valley District School Board, and others that we're negotiating with right now, that will make the project more viable and share in the costs of this project to create a viable MURC. With that, I wish to turn it over to Colliers to present the MURC project and plan.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody. My name is Ron Spina. I'm a principal with Colliers. This is Josh Benoit. He's a project manager with Colliers. We're going to lead the team, and we're going to support you in the development of this project. I have a brief presentation to show you where we are today and to show you where you want to go in the immediate future. For Colliers, this is an impressive project too. We do a lot of municipal projects for a number of municipalities that are similar in size to your municipality. We're
Sorry
currently
to interrupt. Can you speak into the mic, please? I can't hear you.
Oh, okay, sorry. I'll lean over. Okay, sorry about that. Can everybody hear me now?
Yes, much
Okay.
better.
My apology. So just briefly, so just to let you know a little bit about Colliers, we work with a lot of municipalities on similar projects. Community projects, it's part of our DNA at Colliers. And there are similar projects like this where you have new facilities such as ice rinks, multipurpose rooms, libraries, and facilities. We are looking forward, as I said earlier, to continue to support you. From this point forward, we were chosen in September to work with your team. We're working with Matt and we're working with Kyle with your team to start moving this project forward. We think we've made some pretty good progress so far, but we still have a long way to go. So I've got a very short and brief presentation for you. I am available to answer any questions at any time. So very briefly, I'm going to make the introduction of the team. I'm going to give you a little bit of project background. You already know about this project, of course, but I may be a little repetitive, but I'll do that very briefly. Very quickly, the project objectives, very high-level objectives. Currently, where we stand on our approach to funding, as well as the current project timeline. And then finally, next steps over the next short period of time. We've put together a team to support your staff, which is based on a few people with special skills. Your project manager is going to be Josh. I'm the project executive. I assembled this team in response to an RFP for project management services. The team that I have selected, almost all of these people have worked on community center projects, which are similar to yours, not only in the past, but currently working on community center projects. They all have special skill sets. We have Josh here, who's currently working on some projects for Cambridge, for example, the Preston Memorial Auditorium, as well as the Cambridge Recreation Center and Library. So Josh has a significant amount of experience delivering community center projects for municipalities such as yours. He understands the importance of having stakeholders involved at the onset and progressively through the project. I have a few other team members who are supporting Josh. I have Jonathan Lampman, who has special expertise in subdivision developments, as well as planning for road infrastructures and improvements, which is a significant part of this project, as we all know. Melanie Morris is also supporting Josh. She has a significant amount of recreation experience. She was a project manager on the Bracebridge Muskoka Lumber and Community Center project, which just opened. She also was on the team for the Wasaga Stars Arena, which just opened in Wasaga Beach. So she has a significant amount of current experience on ice rink projects. And then we have a team of other people beneath Josh in support of Josh. One person who's an FF&E manager, and they specialize in fixtures, furniture, and equipment. We have Selena, who's also a specialist in readiness, operation readiness, which is about moving you in and getting you into your seats properly. And then we also have a project manager on the team that takes care of some administrative support. So we have a pretty deep team here for you for this project. And this team was specifically selected because we felt this was a team that has good municipal experience and good experience with projects that are similar to this. I don't want to spend too much time on the past partners. I've already mentioned some of these projects that we are either working on right now or we have worked on. You're welcome to speak to anybody from the municipalities about these projects. I mentioned Cambridge. I mentioned Bracebridge. Bradford West Gwillimbury project, which is probably about 10 years old now, which was multiple ice rinks and gymnasium. Wasaga Beach, I've already mentioned. So we've delivered many projects with ice rinks, gymnasiums, multi-purpose rooms, community rooms, significant stakeholder engagement, funding support. We have been involved in many projects that are similar to the Ingersoll project. So once again, you probably already know this, but the scope of work is we have a 78-acre plot of land that's been subdivided for three purposes. The multi-use recreation center, which is an ice rink, walking track, gymnasium, multi-use rooms, as I mentioned, concession, as well as, of course, preparing this property for future subdivision development, as well as preparing this property for a future school. So Colliers wants to support Ingersoll in developing this property and having it set to go for the development that's going to happen probably pretty aggressively over the next 5 years. Further to what I've just said, we're looking at transportation studies, of course, for the road infrastructure around the property. We're going to be upgrading the infrastructure for water, storm, sewer, for the uses that I just mentioned to you, and of course, ultimately, as well as hydro, and of course, ultimately having the site set to go for the multi-use recreation center. Project objectives, of course, this is a community project. This is your project. We're here to support you. You still have ultimate ownership. We want your staff to be involved during design significantly as users. We think staff input to the design and construction team is definitely important for success. We'll continue to work with Matt and Kyle regarding having the staff involved once we get a design team on board. We know that we want to also address elements of the community such as culture, accessibility, sustainability, youth programs, programs for seniors. We want the facility to be very flexible so that as things evolve over the years, the facility can change. So this is what we see commonly in the new facilities. There's a lot of work and there's a lot of people who want to be involved and want to make sure they're all involved in it. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about funding, and I'm not the funding expert, so I'll do the best I can to explain this properly. We have assisted you at Colliers with making 2 funding applications to date. So the first one is called CSRIF. It's funding specifically for geared towards the MURC building. We've applied for the funding. I think we put in a good application, but as everybody knows, almost all of these funding programs are oversubscribed. But we've assisted you with putting in the application. We don't have an answer on that yet, but the application's been made. And secondly, there was a second funding stream that came out, which was basically for infrastructure for housing, and it's basically for water systems, to upgrade the water systems in support of housing and subdivision development. We also worked with your staff team to put together that application. And if there's any more funding programs that come along, we're here to assist Ingersoll with putting those applications together so we can sort of arrive at some funding to assist us with the project. I apologize, you won't be able to see this slide on the screen, but the purpose of this slide is it's our understanding that currently the target for the whole project, that's for the project that I just discussed, obviously not the subdivision development, but for the project is $41 million for the project. That would include construction, soft costs, which is for consultants, and any other equipment, furniture, any costs that are necessary to build this project. It's our understanding that there's $41 million currently available for that. 2 years ago, almost to this day, you received a Class D estimate for construction from a professional cost consultant, Marshall & Murray, which indicated that a 90,000 square foot facility, which is the facility that I had on the earlier slide, would cost for construction $38.8 million. That was 2 years ago. And that did not include for construction contingency work, which is construction contingency after change orders, as well as escalation and soft costs. And based on that estimate and bringing that forward to today, which would be a budget for today until 2027, the plan that we want, the date that we want to have the MURC open, that this wouldn't be sufficient amount of money. But we've been told that we've got to try to work within that envelope, and we're very happy to work with you within that envelope. The first step that we want to implement to work within that envelope is we want to implement a process called progressive design build, which we'll talk about a little bit more later, where we work the design within the budget that we have available. So at this point in time, I'm going to let Josh, pick up on introducing you to the current project timeline, and he'll give you a more thorough discussion of progressive design build. And I'm available at the end of this or at any time to also answer any more questions. Go ahead, Josh.
Thanks, Ron. Just looking at the timeline here, so you can see Colliers were brought on in September this year. We've made some pretty good progress here to date. We've already started with some due diligence activities, archaeological and environmental impact studies are underway. We also have issued an RFP for planning and engineering consultant services to help with the development of the services for the subdivision and the MURC. And up to tomorrow, when that RFP would close. We've also, as Ron mentioned, we've issued 2 grants in that timeline, as you can see there. Moving forward, to close out Q4 2024, we're looking to issue an RFP for the design build process. And then moving into Q1 in 2025, we'd look to have a design builder on board. Q2 of 2025, we'd be looking to close out some of the due diligence and also start the design and costing exercises. Next slide, oh, it's me. Talking a little bit more about the progressive design build process. There's 3 key aspects here for the reason we chose this. We find it works really well for what we're trying to achieve here. The first one is a compressed schedule, so we're able to align with the tight timelines and predominantly outlined in some of the funding applications. Ron talked about it, cost certainty. With the tight budget, we had to kind of stipulate what we're going to spend rather than shoot for the moon. And then the last one is collaboration throughout the entire process here, engaging with stakeholders, the town, and the client in general. Short-term work plan. So we just kind of touched on it here again. Issue the progressive design RFP, which will go out here. We're targeting here before the end of the year. Select the planning and engineering consultant, which closes tomorrow. So we'll have a good idea who's on board for that coming soon. Close out the archaeological and environmental impact studies. And then meeting with key stakeholders will be one of the things that we pick up starting here in the new year. Any questions?
Well, first I want to say thank you, have a council for coming and presenting this. And questions from council in presentation. Sorry, is there Councillor Hallerow, you're just not on screen right now. Do you have any questions?
Yes, I just, it was a really nice short presentation, and I just had a question. We are hoping that the design team is referencing the design that we already have, or is it a room for a brand new design that we're talking about?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, back to the chair. So the intent is to, and we understand that we've seen what you've done. I know you've done some conceptual designs to this point, and obviously you've taken it to a building of roughly 90,000 square feet. That design would be shared with the design build firm, and I think the idea would be we call that a notional design, and we would turn it over to that firm to see if they could improve on it, but the elements in the design would not change. So you're still going to get an ice rink. We're still shooting for walking track, multi-purpose room, and all that. But if there's any way of improving that, and I guess the designers call it optimizing it, we would be looking at that.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor Hallerow?
Follow-up question.
go ahead.
Yes, thank you. And follow-up question, is that to say that there is room for more ideas or more input? Or is it sticking to the basics of the original and then we're talking more in terms of design, existing design, when it comes to additional input for, say, games or different type?
I'll have to go back through
Just
through the
checking because
chair.
people are asking.
Okay, I'll go back through the chair. I would have to answer that we will continue to look at that design with the user groups and the staff to see if there's any tweaking of the design. That would really be up to Ingersoll's people who are responsible for the programming. But my understanding is that you've already been through that process.
Mr. Graves?
Yeah, just to follow up on that through your worship, keeping this project to those costs that we've outlined very clearly to Colliers is difficult. So at this point, we're very much focusing on the goals of what we want to include, the ice rack, the walking track, the gymnasium, multi-use rooms, and the concessions. If things go significantly better than we hope they do, we could proceed to a phase 2 portion of this development much quicker. That would be our ideal. And so as I've said to staff multiple times, and I've said to council, our goal at this point is to keep our costs low and our revenues high. And that's what we're pursuing. And that's part of what we appreciate Colliers has done, is in helping us try to get more revenues and also proposing progressive design build. They're helping to keep our costs low. So as I say, it's a delicate balancing act to try to get there. Should we succeed on a higher level than we ever expected, then certainly those future phases would come on board, and that would need much input from the community groups.
Thank you. And just to follow up, that's, I think, what I was trying to clarify, that we do have that phase 1, phase 2 idea. And I wondered if that included all of that as a holistic, or are we starting just phase 1 as we've kind of adopted? I just wanted that.
Mr. Graves?
This is really phase 1 at this point, and we have talked to Colliers about what a phase 2 might start to look like, and we recognize that may be something that gets triggered earlier than we'd initially thought, but it's all sort of contingent on how the next little while rolls out.
All right, thank you.
Welcome. Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. When it comes to, and I'm not sure who can answer this question, but when it comes to the funding applications, was that, obviously there was 1 or 2 that were driven by us. Do you guys, does Colliers look at different funding opportunities that are available at any specific time, or is that direction through staff from the town of Ingersoll?
So back to the chair. So we have been working with Matt on identifying any other funding opportunities that do arise. So for example, there was another one that just came through that we shared with Matt. So yes, we are working to identify for Matt, any other opportunities that arise.
Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. In a previous direction of council asked for assessment that compares natural gas and purchased electric with renewable as part of the costing process. Do you have that expertise in-house, or that will have to come through an external source? I guess I'm just curious where that plays into the costing process, knowing that we're very tight on the budget.
And I got to apologize. I don't think I ever saw that report. Is the question, do we go natural gas or do we go electric? Is that kind of a simplified way to describe it?
Yeah, if I could, I think staff were requested to look at that. As we know in the process, we are intending to look at some different models of how to make the facility more efficient. But we aren't able to do that until we sort of get past the next stage, which is the design stage. And then once we do that design stage, we'll be able to look at, what can we afford that will maybe keep our costs lower over the long term and make the facility more efficient. But because of the progressive design build, we sort of need that design build as I understand it.
Okay, thank you. Back to the chair. And sorry, Councillor, now I understand it a little bit better. So, we can look at that, But I can tell you right now that within the budget that we have, gas is going to, on a capital side anyways, gas is going to be the most economical way. I can't tell you what this life cycle advantage would be to go into electric, but we can have some very high-level discussions like that, definitely with the design builder, because we have done that on other projects where you consider going to full electrification. But we can definitely look at that, and we'll come back to the team here to see what the pros and cons are on going beyond gas to electric.
Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
If I may, through you, Mayor Petrie, perhaps an offline conversation will need to happen with staff and Colliers, but the direction was to compare the initial capital cost with the life cycle of the facility with purchase electric and other renewable options. So my question was around when we see that comparison and make a decision around, the capital cost. We know the investment upfront is more, but if it's comparable or less over the life cycle of the facility, which is what neighboring communities have made decisions on, I think that was the direction council had asked for. So I was just curious at what point we would see that comparison.
That would be at the very early part. Once we get the design builder on board, we can have an early assessment of it at that point, and then we can report back at that point.
Councillor Halleru, please.
Another question. Hello?
Yep, Councillor Halleru, please go ahead.
Can you see me? Oh, yeah, thank you. Through you, Mayor, I would like to find out if you've ever done any projects where you've relied on, even if you were going alternative, if you've done any solar, say partly reliance on solar energy, probably in the last dispensation. People have gone sometimes combining that with gas or electricity. Have you done any projects that involve that?
Back through Chair. Almost all of our recent projects had intentions of putting solar in. We built the building so they could take solar. We built the infrastructure so they could take solar, but they didn't have enough funding to do the solar. So we have actually, Bracebridge has been designed that way. They're hoping they can get funding for solar, but we have designed it for solar. Wasaga Beach has the ability to also do solar panels, but they never had sufficient capital. So this building, if that's the direction, and I'm assuming from the previous councilor's comments that would be the idea, we would build that into this project, and if we had funding available, we could look at that. If we didn't, we can still build in the infrastructure, so if funding became available, we could put solar panels on the roof. These buildings have flat roofs, so they do lend themselves to solar panels pretty simply. So we definitely would look at that as an opportunity for Ingersoll.
All right, thank you, because that's kind of the direction we're all interested in seeing renewable energy. Yeah.
Unfortunately, you're just breaking up a little bit there, but I think, do you want to attempt to repeat what you finished there, Councillor Halleru? You appear
I said thank you. I said thank you because we are definitely all looking some renewable energy options as part of our savings in the future, right?
Excellent. Loud and clear that time. Thank you. Further questions of the delegation? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will now entertain a motion from Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Bowman, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive as information the presentation from Colliers project leaders concerning the multi-use recreation center project update.
Thank you very much. Discussion. I'm just going to say that this is a classic case of the system working correctly. This project was identified by the community and council in our strategic plan. We tasked staff with that, and we're moving down the pipeline with it. It was put in the budget for 2026. We now have project managers on a board of, a group of experts that have led these projects and can deliver on these projects. And we're seeing a timeline unfold here that will hopefully get us to our goal. We don't know what the future will bring, and we certainly don't know. Hopefully we'll have some funding announcements that will help us with that, and things will go better as planned, and then we can move forward. But the system is working. We've give direction and receiving results on that. So I think this is a very good news presentation, and we'll move through the project and keep going. But I didn't hear anything there where I couldn't say yes to. So I think I can certainly accept this and we can move forward. Any other further discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Certainly want to thank all staff involved. I know that's been a very tedious process, and Colliers as well for getting the funding applications in, and as well as getting this point. So thank you for, I know there's been lots of meetings, so thank you very much for that. Next, with that, we're going to move down to, we still have lots of time. So move down to special staff reports. I'm going to give the chair up to the deputy mayor because I have a pecuniary interest. And I will head out. Yeah, okay.
Thanks. So moving on to Special Staff Report CP 2024-380, Official Plan Amendment and Zone Change Application, Clarke Commercial Shopping Center. Mr. Graves?
And I'm going to turn this directly over to our planner to give their report.
Okay, thank you, and good evening, Council. So applications for official plan amendment and zone change have been requested to facilitate the establishment of a medical office consisting of a hearing aid clinic within a proposed commercial plaza at the northeast corner of Hollingshead Road and Clarke Road, which is identified on Plate 1 of the staff report. So specifically, it is proposed that a hearing aid clinic will be 117 square meters in size, or 1,264 square feet, and will be located within a building containing 4 commercial rental spaces, which is shown as Unit 1C on Plate 3 of the staff report. The subject lands are to be developed for a larger commercial plaza, which, as Council is aware, has been granted site plan approval, and the subject lands have begun initial site preparation and service works for the development. The property is approximately 4.3 acres in size, and the future commercial plaza has been approved for a large-scale food store, a number of non-food retail uses, as well as a number of eating establishments, all served by a new parking lot. So the subject lands are designated as service commercial in the official plan, and it's the intent of this designation to facilitate development of large-scale commercial uses that generally aren't suited to the downtown core due to their lot area requirements or compatibility concerns. While generally smaller scale commercial uses are to be directed to the central area as a first priority to maintain the economic health and prosperity of the downtown core as the main area of trade within the town. So specifically, the official plan provides that small-scale medical offices are to be directed to the central area as a first priority. As Council is also aware, the subject lands are also subject to a site-specific policy that was based off of a previous market impact analysis that was undertaken in 2011. These site-specific policies do treat the subject lands as a neighborhood-serving commercial shopping area and have established a number of maximums on gross leasable commercial floor areas based on use, which are detailed in the staff report. The site-specific policy that pertains to the subject lands also prohibits a number of uses, including professional offices, on the subject lands in an effort to ensure that these uses are directed to the central area as a first priority. So given that the proposed hearing aid clinic would be considered a professional office, the applicants have submitted these applications for amendment to allow for the proposed use. To assist with our review of the proposal and to assess what impact the application might have on the local commercial market, the Community Planning Office retained a professional land economist to prepare a market impact analysis. The intent of this analysis was to assess the compatibility of the proposed use with surrounding land uses, assess the effect the proposed use may have on the ability to implement future and planned land uses in the vicinity, assess the impact the proposed use would have on the retail function of the downtown core, and consider whether or not the proposed use would be better located to the central area as a first priority, and whether there is a justified need for this type of use outside the core area. So with respect to compatibility with surrounding land uses, which is noted includes future commercial development both to the east and south, as well as industrial lands to the south and the southwest, and existing and planned residential uses to the north. The study concluded that the proposed hearing aid clinic can be considered compatible with these surrounding land uses, as it will be able to appropriately integrate without having any additional impact on the existing or planned development beyond what could be reasonably be expected from the approved development. With respect to the impact that the proposed development may have on the planned retail function of the central area, it is noted that the official plan provides that this area is intended to be the most functionally diverse area of town and is intended to serve as the primary business district for the community. It's the objective of the official plan to ensure that a healthy economic balance is maintained for the town by providing a range of locations for new and expanded retail facilities within the central area, and other proposed shopping areas are required to provide justification that a location within the central area is not available based on land needs or building areas. So this market impact analysis has indicated that based on their review, the central area is currently meeting its intended function as the dominant retail space within the town. And the study stated that 75% of the town's commercial uses are located within the central area. The approved commercial plaza located on the subject lands was established by way of a previous Ontario Municipal Board decision and will be a significant new retail development within the southeast area of town, and will in itself result in some sales to shift from the central area. However, the market impact analysis concludes that on its own, the proposed hearing aid store, which again would just consist of 117 square meters, is not anticipated to have a significant influence or draw on the approved commercial plaza, and therefore is not anticipated to impact the current function of the central area. The market impact analysis also considered whether the proposed use should be directed to the central area as a first priority. And the study reviewed comparators within the town and identified 3 existing hearing aid clinics within Ingersoll, which are all currently situated within the central area. And the study concluded that while health-related services are well suited to the downtown area, there are examples of healthcare services that are located outside the central area that were established through site-specific reviews and approvals. And there are a number of healthcare services that are located within existing home-based businesses throughout the town, not located in the central area. So the purpose of encouraging these small-scale offices to locate to the central area is to provide competition protection, which is important in preserving the vibrancy of the downtown. However, there are recognized benefits to permitting a number of limited neighborhood-based services outside of the core area to minimize travel distances and encourage local shopping. So specifically in this instance, the subject lands have a special policy intended to treat this area as a neighborhood serving commercial use. And the market impact study concluded that the proposed commercial plaza would provide a strong neighborhood serving function through the supermarket anchor. And approval of the proposed hearing aid clinic is not anticipated to have a negative impact on this function. Essentially, it is anticipated that the Harris and Clarke Street hub, this commercial area will provide as a neighborhood serving hub for the Harris and Clarke Street area, which is also intended to develop for future residential uses to the east of Harris Street as well. And the study noted that much of the growth intended for the town will be directed to the southern portion of the town as future development begins to play out. So planning staff are generally satisfied that sufficient justification has been provided to support the requested official plan amendment and zone change to permit the hearing aid clinic as a small commercial use, which is ancillary to and supportive of the larger commercial development. And staff are satisfied that the proposed use represents a small component of the overall commercial development that's not anticipated to have a negative impact on the health of the downtown core. In order to ensure that the proposed use remains small in scale and reflective of the specific use, staff are recommending that Town Council approve an amending zoning bylaw to specifically permit the hearing aid clinic only, rather than the full list of uses that may be considered as a medical office, to a maximum of 120 square meters, as these were the uses that were specifically reviewed as part of the market impact analysis. No comments of concern were received from any neighboring property owners or any of the staff circulated, and overall, planning staff are recommending that council advise County Council they support the application for official plan amendment and approve the zoning bylaw to allow for the hearing aid clinic, which will be brought forward at a future meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of staff from council? Councillor Halleru, I can't see you, so if you have a question, I'll ask that you can go after Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor. Question, I got to bring that back into my mind now. I like the fact that it's zoning specific to the hearing aid business, which I think to a certain degree is a good addition down in that, down in the south end of town, which is why I will be voting in favor of this.
I don't have any questions, thanks.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, Councillor Hughes, are you ready with a motion?
Yes, I am. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Halleru, that the Council of the Town of Ingersoll receive report number CP 2024-380, and that the Council of the Town of Ingersoll advise County of Oxford Council that the town supports the official planned amendment, file numbers OP 24-11-6, as submitted by Clarke Commercial Shopping Center, Inc., to amend the existing site-specific service commercial policies that apply to the subject lands to permit the establishment of a hearing aid clinic within the commercial plaza. And that Council of the Town of Ingersoll approved in principle the zone change application, file number ZN 6-24-05, as submitted by Clarke Commercial Shopping Centers, Inc., to rezone the subject land from Special Highway Commercial Zone, HC10, to an amended Special Highway Commercial Zone, HCSP, to include a hearing aid clinic to a maximum gross floor area of 120 meters squared, 91.7 square feet.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Any discussion on the motion? Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens?
I had the same exact question that Councillor Hughes had as well, and I'm glad that it is only for hearing aid. That was the one thing that will push me to be able to vote in favor of this motion going forward. I just want to be clear, though, that if a hearing aid clinic pulled out, they would have to go back then to what was in the what's able to be there, right? They can't just pick another thing then, right?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens. As it stands now, the Special Highway Commercial Zone and the overarching policy allows for a very wide range of uses permitted. So they would still have lots of options. But if they were looking at a different type of medical clinic or professional office, it would require another amendment to the policy and the zoning.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Councillor Halleru, if you could just say yay or nay, you're frozen.
Oh, okay, yes.
Thank you. And none opposed, that's carried.
Excellent, and now we'll move on to item 6 on our agenda. Let's check the time there, and that is C-035-24, Appointment of Integrity Commission. I'll turn that over to Mr. Grace, please.
Yes, as council is aware, we previously had a temporary integrity commissioner, and so we're proposing a more permanent one, and I will turn it over to the clerk to speak to that report.
So this report seeks council's direction to appoint Airden Bayless LLP as the town's integrity commissioner and closed meeting investigator for a term ending May 31st, 2027 is what we're recommending, following the resignation of our previous integrity commissioner and closed meeting investigator, Mr. Robert Swayze. Airden Bayless has been serving in an interim capacity as the town's integrity commissioner and closed meeting investigator since June 2024, and staff recommend continuing with them due to their efficient team-based approach, which addresses previous concerns about response times and service levels. This appointment recommendation aligns with recent decisions by the County of Oxford and other lower-tier municipalities within Oxford, and is in compliance with our procurement bylaw, which exempts legal and regulatory services and allows for sole sourcing where the supplier possesses specialized knowledge, skills, expertise, and experience. Hard to gauge the financial impact, as that is dependent on the volume of complaints or calls received from the Integrity Commissioner for requests for advice from councillors. But this approach is considered cost-effective, the team-based approach. Council is asked to consider approving the recommendation, which will be formalized by a bylaw at the next regular meeting. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you much. Any questions of the report? Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to the clerk. Cost-wise, comparable to other integrity commissioners, what cost, what do these people charge? I guess is the simple answer. I know it's going to be depending on the length of investigation and the number, but what is, if you want to say, a per hour charge for all of that application?
A per hour charges, so it's a little bit difficult to answer because there's a team-based approach. And so in a previous meeting, the hourly rates were presented to council, but it ranges from the lead investigator, the billables, I can't remember the amount off the top of my head, but then the team-based approach goes down from there. So it completely depends on who is assigned to the case. What we have seen is that with the invoices that we've received from Airden Bayless, it's not necessarily the lead investigator's hourly that is being presented to us. It's the, as we know, Megan, who was the lead on this, on the most recent integrity commissioner, code of conduct complaints. So it's going to be lower. It's really hard to gauge. It's kind of comparable across the board when we look at the invoices that we received prior to Mr. Swayze resigning versus what we have received from Airden Bayless. But again, it completely depends on the complexity of the investigation, how many people are having input in that the Integrity Commissioner reaches out to get advice from or get input from. So it's so dependent. It's really hard to put a number on that. I apologize. I'm not really answering your question very effectively.
No, there are a number of variables, I understand. Okay, all right. And a follow-up question to that, is there a retainer that we are to submit to them? And what is the value of that retainer?
No retainer for under this contract.
Councillor Hallerer, please.
I would like to say, are we able to, in our own jurisdiction, request a certain service level? I basically can tell you right now that Toronto being the first to ever have an Integrity Commissioner's office, interviews are conducted a lot when investigations are ongoing, and they're allowed to be done as part of fairness and transparency. And I was not granted that request, even though I asked a couple times. And I want to make sure that going forward, that we are able to request certain service levels to fully utilize the amount of money that we'll be paying to an Integrity Commissioner, whether they're independent or its team.
So the service level is almost laid out within within council's code of conduct. So there is a procedure within that as to how those complaints will be investigated. And so the integrity commissioner is provided the town's code of conduct, and they're responsible for following that procedure as laid out in the code.
So follow up, sorry, Chair. What would we consider access, like accessibility options for dealing with the integrity commissioner? Because like I said, in this case, I was surprised that I was denied interviews that I requested for, because again, when it comes to a time where you need to explain or have whether one-on-one and you're not allowed to do that, it is quite difficult to type in, which is why it has caused quite a lot of distress trying to type and answer questions over a course of 6 to 8 months, which has really been depressing. So I would like to see that we have certain requirements embedded in their expectations of them, that anyone has a right to respond to integrity reports based on what we know to be a fundamental level, which I would say in this case did not have the power to tell an integrity commissioner what levels of accessibility do require of their investigations.
Yes, Clarke, please.
Through the mayor to Councillor Hallerow, and then the CAO might want to jump in. So we do have an obligation per the Integrated Accessibility Standards Regulation to ensure that all of our policies, procedures are accessible. And so at any point in time, an accommodation request can be made. And so that's something that Aird and Bearless would be subject to those same requirements to ensure that their services are accessible. But that request would have to be made, and so I can't speak to the conversations that occurred, but I would assume that if a request for accommodation was presented to them, that they would work with that individual to determine their individual accommodation needs. I believe the requirement or the preference that the responses be submitted in writing is that they don't get into a situation where they're trying to, from a conversation, extract what that individual is saying, whereas if it's in writing, then they know exactly what the response is of the respondent.
Mr. Graves, please.
Yeah,
No, I think that is a fundamental flaw.
Sorry, Mr. Graves has Mr. Graves, please.
Yeah.
And I would just follow up to say that, unfortunately, in this most recent case, one of the particular difficulties was the resignation of Mr. Swayze, which caused a great delay, which was a hardship for everyone, and that didn't help. That's one of the reasons why the report that's written is recommending Aird and Bearless, because they did pick up relatively quickly and move through the process relatively quickly, which we would like to have moving forward as a sort of service level. If there are concerns with the current code of conduct, that's something that council could potentially request to have reviewed, and they could get comments from their integrity commissioner and a comparison of what other service levels are in other municipalities to look at some comparables and options. That's something council could consider in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Follow up. I do feel like I was of the opinion that after this temporary replacement, that we would be going through the regular process, getting RFP in place for people to call in to apply. But I understand the report the clerk has just presented, that because they're a significantly different type of organization. However, we are coming out from a current investigation in which I'm also doing a review of whether that process was fair to me. So I'm actually in a situation where I'm wondering if we are to go ahead, I would love to see that we do put stipulations in place, because it is the primary reason an integrity commissioner's office has said is to be fair and listen to all parties. And I want to say I actually did not get that fair chance to speak. And you could record speech. It doesn't always have to be written. I asked for an extension because there was a period I was not even well. I did not get that fair accessibility option, which is what I feel everyone deserves. And if we are to confirm them, then we have to have a unified understanding of what that office actually means and holds. Because, like I said, it is like a court of law. Everyone has a right to speak. You can write letters, you can speak, you can do videos. It is for the record, and it doesn't mean that you are taking that person's opinion at all. I just feel like that was lost on me. And I'm not just speaking for myself, I'm speaking for anyone else that may fall into this and find that they can't actually speak or answer a question in a way that makes them feel heard.
Any further questions? Seeing none. Councillor Bowman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With that being said, I think I'll resolve the comments by saying, moved by myself, Councillor Bowman, seconded by Councillor Hughes, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receives report C-035-24 as information, and that Council do authorize the Mayor and Clerk to sign an agreement to appoint Aird and Bearless, LLP, as the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll's Integrity Commissioner and Closed Session Investigator for the term ending May 31st, 2027. And further, that staff be directed to bring forward an appointment bylaw to the next meeting of council.
Thank you very much. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we'll move on to C-036-24, updates to boards and committees. And I will turn that over to Ms. Graves, please. Oh, do you want to know what? We are going to do that. We are going to, the time got away with me. Yeah, let's take a 5-minute break. We'll come back and we'll go into our planning meetings and we'll get those finished up. Thank you, sir. Motion to recess. Councillor Van Kootenbossen, second by Councillor Hughes, for a 5-minute recess. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We'll be back at 7:06, please. Thank you, everyone. We'll call the meeting back to order, and we'll go right into our public meeting portion of the evening. And we have, okay, for public meeting notes for zoning and official plan amendment applications, ZN 6-24-07. Nope, that is wrong. Okay. No, it is. Okay. I'm blocking it. Okay, we'll get together here. I declare the public meeting to be open. This meeting is constituted a public meeting held under the Planning Act to consider proposed amendments to consolidated bylaw, zoning bylaw 044160. Any person in attendance, including those participating virtually, may make a presentation to council in support or opposition to the zone change applications. Individuals who wish to receive the decision of council on any applications being considered this evening must sign the record of attendance outside of council chambers or submit a written request to the Town of Ingersoll Clerk, danielle.richard@ingersoll.ca. The Ontario Land Tribunal has the power to dismiss any appeal under subsection 25 if the appellant has not provided council with oral submissions at a public meeting or written submissions before a bylaw has been passed under this section. So the application to be heard this evening concerns application ZN 6-24-07, 274171 Wallace Line, applicant 286-2083, Ontario, Inc. Do any members of the council have a conflict of interest on this application to be considered? Seeing none, has the clerk received any additional correspondence on the application that has not been noted on the agenda?
I have not.
Thank you. I now ask the planner, Heather Sinclair, to provide an overview of the application and an explanation of the requested zoning amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this application for zone change has been requested to remove the parking setback provision of the general industrial zone as it applies to the portion of the property that's zoned as special general industrial MG-9. Specifically, the application for zone change is requesting relief from Table 14.2 of the zoning bylaw, use of front and exterior side yard provision, which states that the required front and exterior side yards shall be kept open and unobstructed by any structure or parking area for motor vehicles, excepting visitor parking. So in this instance, the applicants are proposing to use the front and the exterior side yard for parking beyond just that of visitor parking for future industrial development, and as such, relief is required from this provision. The subject lands are located at the northwest corner of Wallace Line and Robinson Road and are approximately 142 acres in size and have been draft approved for an industrial subdivision for the creation of 11 blocks for future industrial development, ranging in size from 3.9 acres to 7.6 acres. The draft-approved plan of subdivision also includes 1 block for a sanitary pumping station, 1 block for a stormwater management pond, and 1 block for existing environmental features, as well as the creation of 1 new local road. A portion of the subject lands are located within the 5 Point Wood provincially significant wetland complex and are also affected by significantly important woodlands. However, the proposed amendment applies only to those lands that are currently zoned for industrial development, and no changes are proposed for the environmental areas. At this time, the applicants are nearing completion of the required conditions for their draft approval for the subdivision and have submitted applications for site plan approval for blocks 3, 5, 6, and 8 of the proposed subdivision for future industrial development. And preliminary site preparation has begun through a pre-servicing agreement with the town. The subject lands are designated as industrial in the official plan, and as noted, are zoned as Special Industrial Zone MG-9, which is a site-specific zoning that was approved in February of 2023 as part of the draft approval process for the subdivision. The MG-9 zone permits much of the full range of uses that's permitted within the industrial zones, with the exception of a number of heavy industrial-type land uses. The MG-9 zone also establishes a minimum lot coverage requirement of 10% of lot area and implements the general development standards of the MG zone, which includes the said restrictions on the parking requirements in the front and exterior side yards for all vehicles excepting visitor parking. And therefore, the proposed amendment has been requested to allow for relief to this general parking provision. And as you can see on the plates in the staff report, we've provided a preliminary concept plan that has been submitted through the site plan approval process, which shows parking within the required front yard of one of the blocks on the approved subdivision. No comments of concern have been received regarding the application as a result of our public circulation, and a subsequent report, including all comments received through our agency circulation, as well as a recommendation to council, will be provided at a future meeting. And I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does the applicant or the representative have any comments to make concerning the application? If so, I'd ask you to come up to the lectern, please. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Further to Heather's comments, in our designs, we've included parking to accommodate industrial uses such as light manufacturing compared to a significant lower requirement for warehouse parking. We have also captured additional parking for future office mezzanines. In doing this, it provides opportunity to attract new industry and more job opportunities. Without the approval of the zone change, there will be a drastic decrease in building size, which would impact marketing and tax revenues for the development and the town. That's all the comments I have at this point.
Thank you very much. I will now open the meeting to comments from the public. This portion of the meeting provides the opportunity for individuals to speak to the application and have their comments considered by the planner and council before a report and recommendation on the requested zoning amendment is brought forward for a decision at a subsequent council meeting. Any person from the audience who wishes to provide comments in support or opposition of the application may do so now by coming forward to the lectern and stating their name and address for the public record. Does anybody like to speak to this application? Yep, please come forward. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Dave Harrison, and I have the property to the west of the new industrial complex. And I guess I'm just concerned about what this proposal is about. We're not too happy about it all changing to industrial, naturally. We're concerned about light and noise pollution. And now we're questioning, just what is the next step that we're being confronted with.
The planner gave an overview, but would you mind recapping the general nature of the application for the resident, please?
Certainly. So what specifically is being proposed is a reduction to the zoning requirements, which state that within the general industrial zone, no parking is permitted within the front and exterior side yards of a specific property, which in the case of the MG zone essentially requires a 15-meter setback. It is noted that that provision does allow for visitor parking within that front and exterior side yard setback, but in this instance, the applicant is looking to utilize that space for general parking, not just restrict it for visitor parking. So they're asking for an amendment to that specific provision. So essentially, the proposed amendment would allow for parking within the front yard of the subject property, and in the case where the subject lands as part of the subdivision are on a corner lot, they would be permitted to park in an exterior side yard as well. So that's what the proposed amendment is requesting to do.
With that information, do you have any other input you'd like to have?
So basically then it's just a 15-meter closer to the property line, I guess is what their proposal is.
That's correct, Your Worship. And to clarify, it wouldn't impact any interior side yard setbacks. So it would just be setbacks as they relate to front yards and exterior side yards on a corner lot.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anybody else from the public who'd like to speak to this application? Seeing none, members of the council now have the opportunity to ask any questions about the application. However, they may not offer any comments at this time. Any questions of council on this application? Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you. So what would so if this is approved, what would be the setback on the front of the yard before the parking spaces start?
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Hughes. What we would be looking at and what's being shown in majority of the landscape plans that have been submitted by the applicant is in the general provisions of the zoning bylaw, a 1 meter setback is required for industrial land uses to front and exterior side yards. In most cases, the applicant is proposing a greater setback than the 1 meter. I think the smallest setback I've seen through their preliminary site plans is 1.6 meters from the lot line. But I believe the designer is here and might be able to confirm that.
We're seeing a thumbs up.
Okay.
If that's good enough for Councillor Hughes?
Yes.
Okay, Councillor Van Kooten-Boston, please.
Just based off of what Mr. Harrison was asking, I'm wondering if either you, Heather, or the applicant could tell us what kind of noise barriers will be in place for the properties. Because, I mean, we're essentially looking at the property number 3, parcel number 3, I'll use that instead, not property number 3. Parcel number 3, which would be closest to the Harrison farm in that respect. So is there going to be some kind of a berm, or is there going to be a tree line that will help to mitigate some of that noise pollution and possibly even light pollution that would be coming from the facility there closest to his property?
Would you like to take that first?
I'll start. How's that sound? Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Van Kooten-Boston. At this time, town staff have reviewed the first submission of site plan applications for blocks 3, 5, 6, and 8. Comments went back to the applicant with respect to block 3, asking for them to provide a noise study to make sure that there will be no adverse impacts on the residential dwelling to the west. We've also asked for them to confirm lighting plans. At this time, the applicants have submitted a second submission for blocks 5, 6, and 8, and I understand they're working on their noise study now to demonstrate that there won't be any adverse impacts on the neighboring residents to the west. But maybe Steve can give us an update on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Heather mentioned, we are going through that process for a noise study, and we should be expecting a draft plan by the end of this month. So we'll have further indication of what we need to do to satisfy that.
Thank you.
Further questions from council? Councillor Hughes, please.
Are there any other industrial developments that have been allowed the parking in the front in contravention to the current requirements? That you know of?
Through you,
If you wish
Worship.
to answer, please do.
Yeah, unfortunately, none that I've been a part of or that I can recall. But the clerk might be able to think of some examples, or perhaps the chief building official.
Mr. Graves?
Yeah, I can't think of any either, although there have been ones where the visitor parking was allowed, so that might accommodate some, but I can't think of any specifically that I've dealt with.
Through you, Mayor. I'm not familiar with any off the top of my head either. We could certainly look into that if you'd like us to. The top of my head, though, I can't remember any in particular.
Okay, thank you. I do have a question around what is the planning rationale for our current zoning bylaw with requirements of it? Is the main purpose for safe access? That's what I'd really like to know, as far as we have the current zoning bylaw that doesn't allow this. What is the reasons and the goals of that this current zone? What is it trying to achieve?
Overall, my understanding is that it's trying to essentially set up more of an aesthetic industrial area by not bringing all of your parking adjacent to the streetscape. There's ways to get around that. Essentially, it's just trying to provide for a little bit more of a cohesive streetscape, mainly for an aesthetic reason. There's ways to address that through landscaping, but ultimately you want to make sure that you have enough space for maintenance and for proper drainage. You want to make sure that you have safe egress and ingress. So as long as those items are being achieved overall, given that visitor parking is permitted within these areas, I'm not certain what the intent of the bylaw is aside from allowing for a greener streetscape, essentially.
Okay, I'm just looking at the diagram that was provided, and it does look like the drawing looks like it's predominantly truck traffic out back. Two types of vehicle traffic, a smaller car and larger truck. Could that pose a greater safety concern than allowing parking in a different area to keep those separated? Is that something being taken under consideration in this case?
The zoning bylaw doesn't specifically prohibit driveway access for transport vehicles versus like employee or visitor parking. So from a safety perspective, I don't know if that's high on our list. Perhaps Matt might have some comments on that from the accessibility of the site, but I'm not sure if that's being reviewed from his perspective.
Through you, Mayor. Yeah, we would typically look at that from just site movement perspective, but not overarching like the first priority of it with these things, more the impact to the right of way that we're looking at from our review standpoint.
Any further questions? Seeing none. If there are no further comments or questions, then the public meeting for this application is now concluded. The applications will be scheduled to become before council at a subsequent meeting during which the planner's report and recommendation will be considered. As a reminder, if any member of the audience wishes to be notified of the decision of council in respect of any zoning bylaw amendments, they must submit a written request to the town clerk, Danielle Richard, at danielle.richard@ingersoll.ca. The clerk must provide notice of council's decision to all those who request a copy within 15 days after the day the bylaw is passed. The Planning Act provides for an appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal from a decision made by the town of Ingersoll within 20 days of the issuing of notice of decision. Only specified persons, public bodies, registered owners of land to which the plan may apply, the requester to amend the plan, and the minister may appeal the decision of the town to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Excluding the minister, any party wishing to make an appeal must have made written oral submissions to the council at a public meeting. Please note that third parties, anyone who is not a specified person or public body, do not have the right to appeal a decision for a zone change amendment to the Ontario Land Tribunal. With that, Councillor Hughes, do you have a motion, please?
Yes, I do. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Hellerue, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive report number CP 2024-382 as information.
Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we'll move right next into our next public meeting. I declare the public meeting to be open. This meeting is being constituted as a public meeting held under Planning Act to consider proposed amendments to Consolidated Zoning Bylaw 0441-60. Any person in attendance, including those participating virtually, may make a presentation to council in support or opposition to the zone change applications. Individuals who wish to receive decision of council on any application being considered this evening must sign the record of attendance outside council chambers or submit a written request to the attention of the town clerk, Danielle Richard, at danielle.richard@ingersoll.ca. The Ontario Land Tribunal has the power to dismiss an appeal under subsection 25 if an appellant has not provided council with oral submissions at a public meeting or a written submission before a bylaw is passed under this section. The application to be heard this evening concerns application ZN 6-24-09543936 Clarke Road East, applicant Groot. Does any member of council have a conflict of interest on the application to be being considered? Seeing none, has the clerk received any additional correspondence on the applications that ought to be noted on the agenda?
I have not.
Thank you. And I now request the planner, Heather Sinclair, to provide an overview of the application and explanation of the requested zoning amendment, please.
Thank you. The next application for zone change has been received to permit the development of a residential accessory building, 178.8 square meters or 1,925 square feet in size, which exceeds the maximum permitted in the R1 zone, which is 100 square meters or 1,076 square feet. The proposed zone change will also recognize the use of the land as residential, which has recently changed as a result of being brought into the town's boundary as part of the annexation agreement with the Township of Southwest Oxford and the adoption of the Southwest Ingersoll Secondary Plan, which has redesignated these lands from agricultural reserve to medium-density residential. Further, the lands themselves have recently been created as a residential parcel from a larger farm parcel by the town as part of a recent purchase agreement. As shown on plate 1, these subject lands are located on the south side of Clarke Road East, lying east of Herrick Street, and are approximately 1.8 acres in size, with 47 meters or 154 feet of frontage on Clarke Road, and an approximate depth of 177 meters or 582 feet. These subject lands contain an existing single detached dwelling and are currently served by a private well and septic system. And surrounding land uses are mainly comprised of future development lands to the north and south, intended for residential and recreational development as part of the Southwest Ingersoll Secondary Plan. And the applicant has also indicated that an increase in maximum height allowance for the proposed accessory building would be required from 5 meters or 16.4 feet to 5.9 meters or 19.4 feet. However, based on a permit drawing that's been submitted to the building department, the proposed height, which is measured to the midpoint between the eaves and the roof peak, will comply with the maximum height requirement. The subject lands are designated as medium-density residential in the official plan, and they are part of that larger area that was brought into the town boundary from the Township of Southwest Oxford, and they are subject to a site-specific policy to implement the Southwest Ingersoll Secondary Plan that was approved earlier this year. So while this secondary planning has been completed and the amending policies have been put in place for the lands recently annexed from Southwest Oxford, the zoning for these lands has not yet been amended. And as such, the subject lands are currently zoned as General Agricultural Zone A2 in the Township of Southwest Oxford zoning bylaw. And this zoning permits a range of agricultural uses and requires a minimum lot area of 30 hectares or 75 acres. It's proposed that the subject lands will be rezoned to special residential type 1 zone under the town zoning bylaw to recognize the existing single detached dwelling, and the applicants have requested the site-specific provision to permit the construction of the residential accessory structure to a maximum size of 178 square meters, whereas 100 square meters, as noted, is permitted in the zoning bylaw. The applicants have indicated that the proposed building will be used to store personal vehicles as well as recreational vehicles and a garden tractor. To date, no comments have been received from any of the neighboring property owners circulated, and a subsequent report detailing comments from staff as well as a planning recommendation will be provided to council at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the applicant or the representative have any comments to make concerning the application? Welcome.
Hello, my name is Nicholas Groot. I'm the homeowner of the subject property, looking to build the garage behind my house, but I've unfortunately run into this zoning issue. Just a brief history on the property. My family was part owner of the farm which this house is located on. When the farm was originally purchased in 2012, I bought the house off the farm, but the property was not severed at that time. This is also the same land that Town Ingersoll acquired in December 2023. In December 2023. Part of the deal with Ingersoll included severing the property, which we are now trying to rezone. During the land sale process, my wife and I were looking to plan renovations to the house and property that we would finally be able to complete once the property was severed and officially in our name. Our property is now severed, but is still zoned A2 based on the Southwest Oxford bylaws. We designed the detached garage based on those provisions of the current zoning and are within those accessory building provisions. The zoning issue happened when the severance occurred. What we didn't realize until it was too late, that severing, we lost the 74.1 acres we needed to satisfy the minimum lot area of the A2 zoning provision. So until we were able to get rezoned, we are unable to do any of these renovations that we have designed. If we are able to rezone, we are hoping to keep the detached garage as designed. I just need the space for 3 vehicles plus storage of lawnmower, utility trailer, ATV. I'm also a tradesman, so I also have quite a bit of tools. I'm also planning on sizing electrical service to this garage to have the capacity to run an EV charger for a future EV. Also, with the renovation we have planned to the house, we will be demolishing the existing attached garage in order to put an addition on our house. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll now open this meeting to public comments from the public. This portion of the meeting provides the opportunity for individuals to speak to the application and have their comments considered by the planner and council before a report and recommendation on the requested zoning amendment is brought forward for decision at a subsequent council meeting. Any person from the audience who wishes to provide comments in support or opposition of the application may do so now by coming forward to the lectern and stating their name and address for the public record. Would anyone like to speak to the application? Please do so. Welcome.
Yes, hi, Nick Groot, Grillbrook Farm. Yeah, we sold a farm to the town of Ingersoll about a year ago this month, and I think you guys approved this sale. It was, I think, great for all parties. But yeah, I think we're just a little ahead of the curve here with the zoning stuff. I would hope that all that land that's going to be housing all gets zoned residential, because I'm where I live, it's still part of this whole parcel. And it also restricts us from doing anything on our house. So I would hope that that the zoning for residential happens in due time so we can all get on with our lives. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to comment? Seeing none. Members of council may now have the opportunity to ask any questions about the application. However, they may not offer any comments at this time. Questions from council? Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Is there any idea when that rezoning is going to happen to bring this into, through, I guess that has to happen through Southwest Oxford first, or is that going to happen through us?
Is it pertinent to this application, or is that a different process? Mr. Graves?
It's not pertinent to this application, but it's through a different process. But as per the presentation we had earlier this evening, the planning stuff, the subdivision and that stuff will be occurring, so we could correct some of those zonings in those areas as well. So in the next few months, it will be beginning, and so we'll be looking at those areas.
Okay. Further questions from council?
That's it.
Thank you very much. If there are no further questions or comments from the comments or questions, the public meeting for this application is now concluded. The application will be scheduled to come before council at a subsequent council meeting during which the planner's report and recommendation will be considered. As a reminder, if any member of the audience wishes to be notified of the decision of council in respect to the zoning bylaw amendments, they must submit a written request to the town clerk, Danielle Richard at danielle.richard@ingersoll.ca. The clerk must provide notice of council's decisions to any of those who request a copy within 15 days after the day the bylaw is passed. The Planning Act provides for an appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal from a decision made by the town of Ingersoll within 20 days of the issuance of the notice of decision. Only specified persons, public bodies, registered owners of the land to which the plan may apply, the requester to amend the plan, and the minister may appeal the decision of the town to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Excluding the minister, any party wishing to make an appeal must have made written or oral submissions to the council at a public meeting. Please note that third parties, anyone who is not specified person or public body, do not have the right to appeal the decision for a zoning change amendment to the Ontario Land Tribunal. And with that, I will ask Councillor Halleru for a resolution, please.
Thank you. Moved by myself. Just give me a minute here. This is moved by myself, Councillor Heller, seconded by Councillor, sorry. That's used. I have to find that one.
Number 17.
Yeah. All right. Moved by myself, Councillor Halleru, seconded by Councillor Bowman, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive report number CP 2024-375 as information. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, and that concludes our public meetings for this evening, and so we'll return to our agenda, and now we will head to updates to boards and committees, and I'll turn that to our clerk.
Sure.
Well done.
Thank you. So this report seeks council's direction on 2 matters regarding appointments to council's boards and committees. So first, it recommends appointing Jim Hunt to the Safe Cycling Committee following his application and active involvement in recent meetings. Second, it proposes removing Mr. Tom Leftley from the Accessibility Advisory Committee based on his request to be removed. Staff support both actions and recommend updating the bylaw to reflect these changes, which is attached to the agenda. Just important to ensure active and engaged membership on council's committees and ensure that quorum is able to be achieved at each meeting. No financial or interdepartmental implications, and so just looking to update the bylaw and receive council's support on this report. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions of council? Councillor Halleru, please.
Thank you. This is just wanting to make sure there's consistency in appointing members to boards. The last opportunity we had to do this, we thought to take it back to the public so that we could be fair, even though we had 2 members that were constantly at those meetings. So I'm just wondering, is this a reform to the way that we will do it in the future? Because there's 2 different opportunities to do it here. And no offense to Jim Hunt, definitely deserves it if he's been attending. But this was also the case for 2 others at the last appointment to boards that was not approved to go this way. So I just wondered if this is a refinement of what we do going forward.
I can answer that for you, Councillor Halleru. There is no membership limitations on these boards or committees, so we're glad to have anybody who wants to apply. I believe you're referring to maybe the Police Services Board, because it's the only board of council, and there is a limitation on numbers there, so council had to make a choice. But in this member, certainly on our committees, some of them have numbers specified, others don't. And in this case, the Safe Cycling Committee does not. So we can certainly follow this procedure to be able to, someone just applies and they can be appointed to that. And in the other case, they can also request to be removed.
Follow up.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, in this case, I totally agree. But in the case of the police board, there were also 2 members that constantly attended meetings and 2 members that were also on the list of applicants. And we had suggested the same way to approve them since they were already on the list of wanting to join, or to basically either refer to the fact that they had applied before and weren't granted in and could come in because they had attended meetings, or not. I'm just feeling like we need to be very clear to the public how we want to do this so that going forward it feels fair, because that just was total opposite of what we just did.
No, so that process was approved by council, and council followed their process, and there was no variation from the process that council approved. So totally different situation than what we have here this evening, and certainly that's up to council's prerogative on how they want to choose and who they want to choose to serve on their boards and committees. Further questions of the report? Seeing none, Councillor Halleru again, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Halleru, seconded, this is number 7 now, seconded by Councillor Boston, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive staff report C-03624 as information, and that Council approve the appointment of Jim Hunt to the Ingersoll Safe Cycling Committee, and further that Council approve the removal of Tom Leffley from the Ingersoll Accessibility Committee Advisory Committee, and further that Council approve amendments to the bylaw 235264 to reflect these changes.
Thank you very much. Discussion. Certainly want to welcome Jim Hunt to the Safe Cycling Committee and thank Tom Leffley for his service on the Accessibility Committee. He's certainly a lively fellow, and he will be missed for his input. But certainly, again, to earlier comments, if anybody in the public is wishing to serve on our committees, take a look on our site there. You can always come out, try it out, attend some meetings, see if it's up for you. And there's a lot of good, valuable service you can give to your community that way. Further comments or discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we'll head down to OP 015-24, Assumption of Clarke Road Industrial Subdivision. Mr. Grace, please.
Yes. Engineering department has been very busy reviewing some of their processes and some of our outstanding projects, so they've got a couple reports on here, and I'll turn it over to Matt to.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so this report's more of a housekeeping item as the town's held responsibility for this development being Newman Street and Ken McKee Street, making up the Clarke Road Industrial Development. So we're at a point now to correct some of the works and initiate some long-term maintenance planning for these roads. So adopting as highways is simply just the next step and in this process. So supplemental to adopting by bylaw these roads, we're also recommending that Ken McKee and Newman Street be designated as no parking. All this is just to assist with the road use and safety within the industrial park for traffic movement. So I'd be happy to answer any questions council may have.
Thank you very much. So it's a very similar process we follow when other people design roads and we assume them and take them over, but in this case we're taking over something that's already ours. It's a little bit easier on that one. Any questions to the report? Seeing none. Councillor Boston, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive staff report OP-015-24 as information, and that Council assumes the subdivision known as Clarke Road Industrial effective November 12, 2024, and further that Newman Street and Ken McKee Street be adopted as public highways by bylaw, and further that Newman Street and Ken McKee Street be designated as no parking to be reflected in the consolidated traffic and parking bylaw.
Thank you very much. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And that'll take us to OP 016-24, Development Application Peer Review Process. Mr. Graves.
I'm just going to turn this directly over to Matt for his report.
Thank you. So this report is seeking for council's endorsement of a peer review policy, which in its simplest form, it's seeking to assist in speeding up development review processes. So to give a brief overview, it's really not uncommon for development proposals to require detailed studies to support the applications, things like stormwater management reports, traffic studies, noise reports, and all for an effort that ensuring these developments don't negatively impact the surrounding built and natural environments. So from a review standpoint, it's important to recognize where specialized input is required. So peer review of these specialized reports is not all that uncommon. So currently managing peer reviews is attempted in a fair manner where we get a fee from, we require a peer review, then we'll search for various consultants without a conflict of interest in the proposal, get their quote, negotiate their quote, provide it back to the developer, get those fees from the developer, pay the peer reviewer, and so forth, and then try to get multiple quotes, these types of things. So it's quite cumbersome. So with the volume of development applications we see, this policy is seeking to speed up this process in a fair manner. So to implement the possibly, engineering staff would put out an expression of interest to find these qualified consultants and list them in a roster system simply by in alphabetical order. Then we can revise our site plan and subdivision fees to have a deposit provided on application, and we'll simply just go down the roster, engage the consultant that doesn't have a conflict of interest, use that deposit to pay the consultant, and then return the balance of the deposit back to the developer once it's done. So it simplifies the process, makes it easier to track, we avoid conflict of interest, and it's all paid for by the developer as it typically is. So we can review the consultants that are on these lists if they're providing timely responses or adequate reviews, revise it over time, remove people every few years, issue a new expression of interest to get new consultants on board, and kind of manage it in that way. So looking to get this one in just again to help speed up reviews of applications. So happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Questions of the report? Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Matt, what time savings are we looking at in regards to this? Is it a couple of weeks, couple of months?
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Hughes. Typically, you can see a pretty common delay of 2 to 3 weeks just negotiating and searching for a consultant, where a developer might be looking for their review to be provided, and we haven't even engaged a peer review yet, where we're still seeking these things and then having to get the developer to provide the funds ahead of time. So it could be 2 weeks to a month that we're saving on some of these processes.
Councillor Halleru, please.
Yeah, I think I like the idea of this because it does help to speed up and requires, as we're meeting the obligation to make it easier for developers to come in and get started. I think that seems to be a very effective tool to kind of have work continue. So I just kind of commend you for bringing that up.
Thank you. Any further questions of the report? Seeing none, Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Bowman, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive staff report OP-016-24 as information, and that Council approves the peer review administration policy as attached to this report.
Discussion? I just want to mirror those comments that this is, anytime you provide clarity and provide better service, that's always welcome. And certainly, I think that Ingersoll does pride itself on providing excellent service to our development community, and this is just another way to increase that lead we have over other organizations. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. And we will now lead us to T-026-24, property tax cancellation, reduction, and refund policy. Mr. Graves.
Thank you. Due to a change from MPAC, we're required to have a new policy to handle this process, and Treasury Department has been very busy in putting together this report and policy. I'll hand it over to Irina. Do you want me to hand it over to Mandy to review? Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you. So as Michael mentioned there, this report is to provide council with the proposed property tax cancellation, reduction, and refund policy. This policy, or the need for this policy, arises from the notification from MPAC in July that they will no longer be offering, or they will only be offering the notional value of impacted structures and will no longer be providing a change in value for the tax applications under section 357(1)(d)(2) and 357(1)(g). Previously, MPAC responded to these applications by providing revaluation amounts, enabling the town to apply tax refunds and reductions. With the process change, we are seeking approval of the proposed policy to establish clear criteria and guidelines for staff in managing these applications under the specified sections. The policy has set provisions on applications under section 357(1)(g). If the policy is approved, applications under this section will be considered for properties in the commercial or industrial tax class, and any approved reduction or refund will be capped at a maximum of 30% of the structure's value and limited to a period of 6 months. We're also seeking approval for bylaw to delegate authority to the Assessment Review Board for applications under Section 357D1, which pertains to sickness or extreme poverty. Section 35711 permits council to pass a bylaw that delegates this authority for such applications. Due to the sensitive nature of these cases, it is standard practice for municipalities to delegate this responsibility to the ARB, as they are better suited to handle these assessments. We have included a bylaw in the agenda if you wish to pass this bylaw, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Questions of the report? Seeing none, Councillor Bowman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Bowman, seconded by Councillor Hughes, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive staff report T-026-24 as information, and that the attached bylaw number 24-5356 be passed to delegate authority to the Assessment Review Board to determine eligibility for property tax cancellation, reduction, or refunds under the Municipal Act 2001, Section 357, subsection 1D1, sickness or extreme poverty. And further, that council approve the new property tax cancellation, reduction, and refund policy attached as attachment A.
Thank you very much. Discussion. Obviously very technical, and we thank you for your expertise. All those in favor? That's carried. We will now go to T-027-24, 2025 user fees and charges bylaw. Mr. Graves.
Again, from time to time, we review our user fees and charges, and this can be a cross-department report. So again, very technical, and a lot of work put together to put this together. So I will hand it over to Mandy once again to give us that report.
Thank you. So this report provides council with the 2025 proposed user fees and charges. The attached Schedule A provides an overview of all the fees, and I've highlighted in red the newly introduced fees and the fees that have been increased by 1.6% or more. The 1.6% is our consumer price index for the third quarter of 2024. Many of the increases do stem from increased wages and general inflationary pressures. Some new fees have been introduced to align with fees that are similar within other municipalities. The report does detail the various increases, and a bylaw has been included in tonight's agenda if you wish to approve the 2025 user fees and charges as presented in Schedule A.
Thank you very much. Questions of the report? Seeing none. Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Hellerue, that the Council for the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive report number T-027-24 as information, and that the attached Schedule A named as the Town of Ingersoll 2025 fees and charges be approved and come to effect as come to effect as of January 1st, 2025, and further that the fees and charges bylaw is updated and approved accordingly.
Thank you very much. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And takes us down to our last special report, which is T-02824, operating budget variance. Mr. Graves.
I think on this one, I'm going to turn it over to Irina to give us the update on the
Yes, thank you.
report.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to present Council with financial overview of our operations as of for the 9 months ended September 30th, 2024. So the report indicating a net surplus of a little over $626,000. So the main report contains an attachment that contains detailed comments for each department, which have been formulated through departmental input and review by the Treasury Department. There is also a number of more notable variances that the Treasury wanted to bring council attention to, so that the revenues and expenses. I'm not going to read all of them because it's definitely not very exciting read, but if council has any questions or concerns, I will be more than happy to address them.
Thank you very much. Any questions of the report? Seeing none, Councillor Hallerow, please.
Thank you. Yes, through you. Moved by myself, Councillor Hallerow, seconded by Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive staff report number T-02824 as information.
Thank you very much. Discussion? No. This is such in life. We budget at the beginning of the year, and then reality happens, and we see where we're at. And so there's certainly nothing concerning there. It's just a little bit of ups and downs. And so I thank staff for their hard work on keeping those within the confines of what we've planned for. It's good to see. And there's potentially some good news at the end of 2024 in the fourth quarter to see if maybe we keep that surplus going. So, further discussion? All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. And would anybody like a break before we go into committee of adjustment, or do we want to power through? Okay, we'll keep going. Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens to take us into committee of adjustment, please.
My pleasure. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll go into Committee of Adjustment meeting to consider the following minor variance application. A-05-24, 46 Bell Street, applicant Emily Darling.
Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we are now in Committee of Adjustment, and I will ask our planner, Heather Sinclair, to give a report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as the committee will recall at your meeting in November, the committee heard an application for minor variance to permit an addition to an existing non-complying residential accessory structure in the rear yard of the subject lands, which are located at 46 Bell Street. The applicant's proposing a 6.8 square meter or 73 square foot addition to the rear of an existing detached garage, which is 13.6 square meters or 147 square feet in size, for a total structure size of 20 square meters or 220 square feet. The detached garage was constructed in approximately 1950 according to assessment records on file and has an existing interior side yard setback of 0.5 meters or 1.6 feet to the westerly interior lot line, whereas 1.2 meters or 3.9 feet is required in the zoning bylaw. And so the applicants are requesting this variance now to facilitate a proposed addition to allow for a consistent setback with that existing structure to allow for vehicle storage. The subject lands are approximately 10,000 square feet in size and contain an existing single detached dwelling that was built in approximately 1900. The southwest portion of the subject lands containing the existing dwelling is regulated by the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority due to the presence of the Murphy Drain. The community planning report provides details of our review of the application under the 4 tests of a minor variance, but I would note that majority of the subject lands is designated as low-density residential, and staff are of the opinion that an addition to an existing detached garage is in keeping with the intent of the official plan for residential use. As per Section 45 of the Planning Act, the official plan also provides direction to the committee when considering an extension or an enlargement of a legally established use which does not conform to the zoning bylaw. And these provisions generally provide that the committee is to be satisfied that the use has been continuous since the day that the zoning bylaw came into effect and forward. There'll be no extension of the building beyond the boundaries of the property. The proposed extension will not adversely affect desirable development of adjacent lands. And the extension is necessary to avoid undue hardship, provided that there are no negative impacts on any environmental features. So planning staff are generally satisfied that this criteria can be met in this instance, as the existing detached garage has been present on the subject land since before the implementation of the zoning bylaw, and the proposed addition will not extend beyond the confines of the property boundaries. Further, the requested variance is not anticipated to have any negative impact on the adjacent environmental features on the southeast side of the property, And to require the applicant to relocate the said garage could be considered an undue hardship. The subject property is zoned as R2 in the zoning bylaw, which permits a number of low-density residential uses, including their accessory structures, to a maximum lot coverage of 100 square meters, or 10% of lot area, whichever is lesser, and requires the said interior side yard setback of 1.2 meters. And it's the intent of this interior side yard setback to ensure that sufficient space is maintained between private development and property boundaries to allow for appropriate area for maintenance and drainage, and to ensure that no impacts had on adjacent land uses. And staff are of the opinion that the proposed addition will continue to provide sufficient space for maintenance and drainage. And given the historic presence of the structure on the subject lands, staff are also of the opinion that minimal impact will be had on the neighboring land use. So as such, we're satisfied that the intent of the zoning bylaw can be met. Staff are also satisfied that the proposal can be considered minor and desirable for the development of the subject lands. The proposed addition will allow for the existing structure to accommodate a vehicle without requiring the applicants to remove or relocate that structure, particularly considering that much of the subject lands are regulated by the Conservation Authority, and as such, it may be difficult to find an appropriate location for a new structure. The Conservation Authority has indicated that they've issued a permit for the proposed addition. No other comments were received as a result of our agency circulation or our public circulation, and staff are of the opinion that the proposal is acceptable from a planning perspective and can be supported. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any members have any questions of the report? Seeing none, Member Wilson.
Moved by myself, seconded by Member Bowman, that the Town of Ingersoll Committee of Adjustment approve application file A05-24, submitted by Amal Sharif and Chris Baronka Darling, of the lands described as Part Lot 256, Block 88, Plan 279, being municipally known as 46 Bell Street, in the Town of Ingersoll, as it relates to 1, relief from Table 5.1.1.4, regulations for accessory uses to permit an 8-meter squared or 86 feet squared addition to an existing residential accessory structure with an interior side yard width of 0.5 meters or 1.6 feet, whereas 1.2 meters or 3.9 feet is required, as the proposed variance is considered to be a minor variance from the provisions of the Town of Ingersoll zoning bylaw 04-4160, desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land, in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the Town of Ingersoll bylaw number 04-4160, and in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the county official plan.
Thank you very much. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We do have a sheet that I'll pass around so we can all sign. Member Halleru, if, I don't know if there'll be a digital copy or if you're, okay, perfect. That will be done digitally. Thank you.
Yeah.
Start that and I'll send it that way to start. And I will now turn to Member Bowman to bring the regular council meeting back to order, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Moved by myself, Member Bowman, seconded by Member Hughes, that the December 9th, 2024 regular meeting of council come back into order.
Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Excellent member use tonight. All right, we'll now go down to correspondence and resolution. And we'll start with number 18, which is Ministry of Solicitor General Regulations 8724 amendments. Councillor Van Kooten Boston's, please.
I'll do that in a second for you. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receives the correspondence from the Ministry of the Solicitor General as information.
Thank you very much. Discussion. Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you. Just was reading through this here a little earlier today, sorry. Does this allow us, because it's talking about special constables and all of that, does this give us the ability to hire more special constables for enforcement of any sort, whether it be through provincial notices or would it just be by law?
Mr. Graves? Is that something you can answer now or have to?
I'd have to look into that further. I don't believe it does, but I can confirm that.
Further questions? Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And we'll now move on to the London Council of Canadians Blue Community Watershed Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Bowman, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive the correspondence from the London Council of Canadians concerning the Blue Community Movement as information.
Thank you very much. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And the Children's Aid Society Letter of Support Follow-Up. Councillor Bowman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Bowman, seconded by Councillor Hughes, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive the correspondence from the Children's Aid Society of Oxford County as information, and that Council direct staff to issue a letter of support in alignment with the correspondence from Tina Diamond, Executive Director, as received by the Clerk on November 23rd, 2024.
Thank you very much. Discussion? Certainly want to thank the Society for providing that follow-up and clarity. Makes it easier to support their movement for sure. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And Councillor Hughes, the Honourable Paul Calandra, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, additional residential units, please.
Thank you. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Hallerou, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive the correspondence from the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing concerning amendments to the regulation to, concerning amendments to OReg 299/19, additional residential units as information.
Thank you very much. Discussion? And Councillor Hallerou, please.
Yes, so this letter is saying that municipalities, again, after we've approved the ARUs, have to go extra. I wanted to understand if we got the clarity. Are there any extra needs or changes that we have to make again, or are we still sticking within what we already agreed and approved for ARUs in Ingersoll?
Yes, I do know that county planning staff are reviewing this, and if there is any changes needed, they'll bring forward recommendations for sure.
All right, thank you.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And that takes us to the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll, the Michael Kirsner, Solicitor General, OPP Billing Adjustments. Councillor Hallerou, please.
Sorry, I was muted. Moved by myself, Councillor Hallerou, seconded by Councillor Van Kutten-Bosens, and the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll received the correspondence from the Solicitor General regarding OPP billing adjustments as information.
Thank you very much. Discussion? As we know, we'll see some of that upcoming at our budget meeting next week. Staff's been certainly always positive news. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And Councillor Van Kutten-Bosens, would you like to take us into bylaws, please?
Certainly. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson, that the mover have leave to introduce and go into committee of the whole on the following bylaws. 1, Bylaw 24-5356, to delegate authority to the Assessment Review Board. 2, Bylaw 24-5357, 2025 interim tax levy. 3, Bylaw 24-5358, to establish fees or charges for certain town services. 4, Bylaw 24-5359, to amend Bylaw 23-5264, to add or remove individuals from council committees. 5, bylaw 24-5360, to assume Ken McKee Street and Newman Street as public highways. 6, bylaw 24-5361, to amend consolidated traffic and parking bylaw 06-4327. 7, bylaw 24-5362, December 9th, 2024, confirmatory bylaw. Council and the Committee of Whole, Mayor Petrie in the chair. On motion, the bylaws are accepted as circulated, and that constitutes the first and second reading of the bylaws.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. We're now in the Committee of the Whole. Would anybody like to discuss any of the bylaws? Seeing none, Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Bowman, that the committee do now rise out of the Committee of the Whole.
Thank you very much. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And Councillor Bowman, please, third reading.
Thank you. Moved by myself, Councillor Bowman, seconded by Councillor Hughes, that bylaws 24-5356 to 24-5362 be read third time, signed and sealed, and this constitutes the third reading of the bylaws.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And Councillor Hughes to adjourn the meeting, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Hellerue, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll adjourn the December 9, 2024 regular meeting of Council at 8:12 p.m.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. Have a great night.